we could just walk you through, maybe do like some quick update on like what happened on the Kive side, because it was a quite exciting week for us, not gonna lie. And so maybe we can just do something like that. But if you guys have any questions, just feel free to like unmute yourself, maybe say some quick words about you, and yeah, just feel free to really ask anything. We are here. I think it's even it's anyone here. So Julian from design, Facila for any non-dev related questions. We're all here. We can all happy to help you guys out.
Any questions, guys?
I've got a quick question.
Sure.
I was just looking at connecting Arweave to Ethereum pricing, and I was looking at Chainlink. Is that something Kive can help with?
So basically you meaning to price Arweave storage for
no, actually I want to price Arweave token. I want to create like an oracle for Arweave so we can trade it. I want to build a basket and be able to put Arweave in it for Ethereum based token trading.
I would say actually then kind of Chainlink is probably your best choice for now, because they probably have the most. Let me just double check if there exists something like that, because they have the most integrations available in that ecosystem.
I looked at Chainlink and they didn't have it. I'm totally, I'm willing to go run it down. It's just the first thing that popped in my head, and I don't want to ask you guys to take a lot of time on it, but that's what I was thinking. That's what I was wondering.
No worries. Let me just have a look. Because that might probably be it. If you want to look into their pricing stuff. What you can do anyways is, I mean, you can. I know how Josh is doing from Bundler Service, but Josh is a good friend of us and also an Arweave project, and he's basically building like a gateway for you to store a lot of Arweave data and things like that. And he's utilizing Solana stuff to pay for Arweave storage. So he must use some kind of oracle under the hood. I would guess it's probably then Chainlink, something like that. John, do you know any more information about that?
Yeah, so what Josh would allow you to do is allow you to pay for Arweave data storage with Ethereum, which is not exactly what you want to do here, Zori. But
probably
yeah, if you want to go, I mean, if you want to go down the road of like oracles, yeah, I would say probably Chainlink is a good place to start. I don't exactly know how easy that would be on their side, because they're EVM based, and obviously Arweave isn't necessarily EVM based, so it would be interesting to see if you could actually get an integration going.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like if you're thinking about like Arweave pricing on Ethereum, there's always the centralized war solution by Everfinance. And what they've done is basically just credit this wallet on Arweave and credit this wallet on Ethereum, and basically you deposit tokens like R tokens on Arweave, and then of course it mints you wrapped R on Ethereum, and so you could do that.
And what was that called? It's Everfinance, and what do they call it?
So it's just called War wrapped R.
And, wrapped R. Okay.
Yep, and then I can also just send you a link to their site.
I'm good. I can find it. Thank you.
No worries.
And it would be great if anyone could stay on mute, who's not asking any questions, so we don't get too much background noise. Anonymous. I don't know because I don't think I can mute someone for everyone together. Let me just try. So
yeah, no, I think it only had like the only people that have admin permissions is the Arweave team. So.
Okay. It's been unfortunate, but if anyone is creating some background noise for you guys, just feel free to mute them. You can just hover over their camera thing and then just click on the mute button. Thank you. And also,
I think it's Anonymous. Anonymous, can you hear us? If yes, mute yourself.
Yeah, I think it's anonymous.
Yeah.
Where are you guys today?
We are actually, so usually we are all from Germany and France and UK, but now that Eve Denver is rolling in, John, me and the other two people from the tech team, we are in Denver. We're actually in the same office. It's just so we both have the same view. It's very beautiful in here. And actually John is somewhere.
Yeah, so like you could see Fabian somewhere like right behind me. We didn't want to get an echo going, so yeah.
Exactly. And yeah, now we're looking forward to the conference. We have a talk next week, Saturday. If anyone from the people here is there anyways, so feel free to join in. Actually, Zori, going back on your question, if you're looking for an Oracle solution, there's actually one out there, which is Redstone. just put the link in the chat there. So what they do is they also an Arweave based project. I think their office time is either already up or is maybe coming up. I don't know 100% about their schedule, but it's basically what they are doing is they're building an oracle with all those different pricing sources, computing a price and storing it on Arweave, and it's very high frequent as well. The only kind of downside you have to keep in mind when you want to build something with that is that price validation keeps happening after they store it. So what could happen is you could introduce basically fake pricing from the outset, and then your application would work at least a short period of time with some like malformed data. So you kind of want to make sure that you're not using it in any like super critical pricing stuff. Like, not, I would not recommend using it in an AMM or something. But if you just want to display some pricing, do some stuff, then that might be the way to go.
I think they had their office hours on Monday. I missed it.
Okay.
But thank you. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome. We can also hook you up with the team if you'd be interested in that. They have tons of pricing sources, not only on Arweave but also on I think any other really blockchain out there. Same with like some normal like asset prices and things like that.
Cool. Thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to hearing a little bit more about Kive. I don't know that much about you guys. I think I heard like the tail end of a call a few months ago, but
yeah, we can give some more intro. That might be smart. I don't know who else is like super familiar with Kive, but maybe I can give some high level overview. So basically, what we've been doing is that we are storing like basically data from mostly from blockchains right now on Arweave, and we are making sure that the data we store is correct. Because what happens on blockchains is they keep on producing data, right? Basically indefinitely. And then the problem is that it gets harder and harder for the nodes to manage all the data because it gets more expensive. Right? You need to expand your data center basically all the time to kind of keep up with the traffic, data, and things like that. And then this leads to scalability problems in Web3. We're seeing this on Solana, for example, right now, where actually the Solana team is one of the only teams which are publicly providing like a full node API service. So it's getting really hard for developers to do that, as well as you're also relying on then some centralized data source as well, right? Because it's cool that a blockchain is decentralized, but if there's only one place to get the data from, then kind of the whole purpose is defeated, right? And then this then also leads to, and if you think on Ethereum, it's EIP 4444, where we have exactly those problems where they want to start pruning the chain just because it gets basically too big. And this is kind of where Kive comes in. So what we do is we take the data from blockchain, we like do some encoding to it. So like we put it into some special formats, and then we store it on Arweave very efficiently. And then also validating that this data is correct, and this all happens in a decentralized manner. And then anyone can go ahead and build something to like being able to retrieve the data. So we are going to build some services for that as well. But we're also working closely with other projects like the Graph and so on, for example, which are then going to utilize our data and then showing that. Because that's also some problems, for example, indexers have, is an indexing service, right? Is someone who's providing the data through like some API to a developer or something like that. And they have exactly the opposite problem, which is where to get the data from. Right, it's like they would need to spin up a node in the forum blockchain, basically operate that, get the data from there, load it into the local database, and tons of things which can go wrong. And this is kind of really what we are focusing on right now, making sure that that this stuff is basically going fine. And then you can kind of extend the idea of Kive. So this was the base idea. Then you can extend this idea to exactly those things like Oracle pricing and stuff like that, where you would fetch from different sources, different prices, and you would just check on our end if they are correct before storing them onto Arweave. And there are like tons of ideas you can really kind of build around, but we are not yet at this stage. We're right now really kind of focusing on the data collection side of things. And yeah, that's probably it. From a roadmap perspective, I would say we have launched our testing pretty early on. It was probably like summertime, a bit earlier maybe, last year. And then from there, we are getting now slowly into it. We started out as a fully Arweave-based project, which might also be an interesting learning for people here which want to build on Arweave, is that the Arweave smart contracting language, which were we based off, is fine and has been rapidly developed by the Redstone team and some others since then. And then basically what we saw is that we actually needed a more production-ready solution for our contracts. So what we did is we shifted away from Arweave-based contracts to the Solidity-based contracts, so normal EVM things, as you know, from like a Uniswap or like from other DeFi protocols, for example. And then, so what we then were doing is we were hiding all the logic on an EVM-based chain, which is right now Moonbase or Moonbeam, but there are tons of options out there. This is also a reason why we decided to do that. And then we're still doing the data storage and stuff on Arweave, just because we as a team are pretty bullish on Arweave and pretty sure that this gives you the most scalability as a young application compared to other solutions. Of course, if you want to have, that's maybe also something interesting. It's like I'm always talking about that from perspective. If you want to have decentralization in mind, right? Because if you were just looking for some cheap storage, you can just put them on IPFS, things like that, which is not decentralized, right? It's only distributed. That's important to keep in mind. And actually, it's really kind of a ethic question. It's like how how much do you want to be focused on building a sustainable product? I think especially in crypto, in the bull market last year, it was super easy to do like a quick flip, right? On some things, you could just fork anything, build anything out of that. But then also, of course, the question is like, how sustainable is your project, right? And we have high sustainability in mind, and this is kind of why we decided to do that. And then also circling back on that is now that we are Solidity based. Well, our logic is Solidity based, is we now have the option to really deploy on anywhere. I mean, you can deploy in mainnet, Ethereum, which is way too expensive for us as a more high throughput application. What you can do as well is you can deploy on like L2s like Arbitrum and Optimism. We did some more research into that, and we noticed that they are not decentralized enough to a level we would like to achieve that. And then you're also looking into other solutions like zk-Sync, which also in their own documentation state they're not fully decentralized yet. So that's all kind of things we're looking forward to kind of doing that. And yeah, now we're kind of exploring various options on how you can do that. But I would, if you guys are building out new projects, I can just highly recommend you guys either like starting with the Arweave contracts, because they are insanely easy to get into and get some proof of concept and stuff starting, and then kind of start to slowly decentralize your application over time. Or if you say, well, to be honest, it doesn't really matter 100% to me how decentralized my application is, which is an absolute fine approach. Like there is no need to decentralize everything, right? And then this is kind of it. I think a good example for applications which don't need to be like 100% decentralized, especially those things like the L2 rollups and things like that. Of course, it would be optimal if they would be decentralized, but as long as you have something which solves the underlying problem, you actually don't need to do that. And it's actually enough if you have a well distributed system. But like every time you need to introduce some trust into the system, like on Kive, for example, where we want to make sure that like outside businesses can trust the data we store, where then of course for us it's highly important that we are operating on a fully decentralized scale around that, because otherwise it's just going to be a big mess if something goes wrong, if you have any big bad players coming in from that. And then also of course from a legal perspective, right? Because then you also have exposing yourself and your project to much higher risk than you actually need to. So this is also kind of an interesting thing to see. But yeah, so this is kind of currently our journey, I would say, kind of doing some research, exploring some things, as well as maintaining the test that we currently have. We had a demo day probably 2 weeks from now, I would say, where we kind of showcase some new things and talk about decentralization is what we did. We introduced the governance. So basically before, like how it's right now, there's one uploader, which is a node which is mostly operated by the team, but it's also just for debugging purposes, right? So we always had control of it because this was like the most bottleneck where things really could go wrong. And then as well as the creating a pool, storage pool aspect, and some other things were also things that we as a team would like to have control over in the beginning of the protocol. And so with the new updates, things got more and more stable, and now we introduced basically this changing uploader idea. So every time some data is uploaded to Arweave, someone else from the network is going to be responsible to upload the next package of data. So it's really like that, really like kind of the decentralization aspect of it, in that we are not responsible anymore for uploading the data and doing things like that, and as well as the governance, which will then be voting on creating a pool, updates and pool logics and things like that, to really make sure that there is no sudden exploits or something where the network could be exposed to. And then we actually were planning to roll out the update already, but as it is in tech, things went a bit wrong the last week. So what happened is, right, we're operating on Moonbase Alpha, which is the tested from Moonbeam and Moonriver, and the team there unfortunately rolled out an update which wasn't working quite well. And so we had some downtime. I think I saw quite some community members in here already. So you guys probably saw that that it was not operating to a normal expected thing. So yeah, this is kind of really what has been happening behind the scenes. And now since I think yesterday evening US time, the network's back up, and then today the team is looking to getting everything back up and running, as well as rolling out the update probably by the end of the week, and then making that stuff possible. So we hope that we have the full the full network back up and running with the new update coming in the next few days. And yeah, that's kind of the status quo right now. I see another question: what's the basic requirement to run a node of Kive? And that's a question actually we get a lot, and it's actually super cool because unless in other like real blockchains, like layer 0 blockchains, where the nodes have to do validations on their end. I mean, proof of work is probably the best example, right? We need a lot of computing power, a lot of storage and things like that. Is actually we kind of outsourced all that stuff. So, or you don't need a lot of storage on your node because Arweave is taking care of that. You don't need a lot of computing power on your node because the EVM is taking care of that, right? So that's the cool thing why Kive nodes are super lightweight. You can run it on literally any hardware. I couldn't think some hardware where you can't run it on. Like the most basic VPS instance on some cloud is enough, as well as the most basic home thing. I think in the beginning, where people which were running a bunch of nodes on their phones. I mean, phones are also quite powerful at those years. But yeah, this is kind of like there's really no basic requirement you would need. With the new update coming in now, we're introducing a local database to make the upload things a bit more efficient. But we're also talking about a few gigabytes here, so also nothing, no blocker here, not even a few 100 gigabytes, like tens of gigabytes. That's way more than enough. And yeah, so you can really kind of run it on any device. And I think the best approach is to be able to like clusterize your nodes if you guys are a bit more of a professional node operators. I think that's a great approach to run the Kive hardware pretty efficiently. John, did I forget anything on that part?
No, yeah, exactly. And you also mentioned the whole storage aspect and the future upgrade. So, nope, all good.
Amazing. We'll just wait for some other questions to drop in for a second.
I've got a question. Who's an ideal partner for Kive?
Actually, there are multiple. So partner is a good question. From a partner perspective, it would be probably a blockchain right now, which is starting off with basically, yeah, which is starting off right now. So then the indexing process for us is the most easiest aspect, and we see this kind of happening more and more with protocols like Injective, for example, where they had the problem that they were in testnet and they had seen such a massive growth in such a short time that they had trouble keeping up with the scale they had, with the few infrastructure they were running. And so they reached out to us, and so we did a partnership where we are basically starting to store their data very early on to really make sure that that they don't run into the scalability problem, that their nodes have a bit of a relief on the tech end. Probably be like an ideal partner for now, as well as I mean, projects like Solana, right, where they actually run into risk right now to lose some of the early data for just economic reasons, right? But no, I mean, there's no technical reason why they do it. It's really just too expensive to maintain the full like hot storage infrastructure. So this might also be interesting. And then I would see like if someone here is interested in hacking around a bit, it's like my perfect idea for like the perfect Web3 stack in the future would look like would actually be a chain which is producing blocks very frequently, like Solana, like Mina, like something like that, but then doesn't store the data at all and just immediately push them through the Arweave pool, and maybe just keeps like a few 100 megabytes of data on their own, because you would get insane high scalability. Because actually finding consensus nowadays it's not tricky anymore, right? We see this on Avalanche with like their consensus algorithm. Actually, any chain has fast consensus right now, right? Because proof of work times are over. So you could do that, and then of course you have exactly these problems. Like the faster you're producing transactions, the faster, like the more storage you have to provide, right? So this is kind of what's where I would see really Kive coming in. It's like someone building a chain which like fully operates as a backend with Kive and then aspect. Because then you also get data indexing and stuff all out of the box. You don't have to worry about working with indexing protocols and things like that to do integrations, and you don't even need a standard to do so. You can come up with your own, although of course it's recommended using something, right? But it gives you a lot of flexibility on that end. And then So this would be like kind of the perfect partner from like the B2B aspect of it. But if you're just a developer, I can also see that Kive coming in as like your main data source. We're also gonna announce something very exciting in the next few days, which will help developers a lot, kind of getting their hands on data access and things like that in Web3 right now, because it's a big problem. I mean, if you guys ever worked across chain, there's actually no nice way right now to access data in multiple ways, but we can help with that, and we're happy to do the announcement in a few days once that stuff is all ready and set on our end. But yeah, this will probably be like two most of the ideal partners which we could help out with.
So like would an Arweave YouTube be a good use case for you? Because it seems like there'd be a ton of data. I don't know about the throughput, but that seems like that would make sense, right?
Yeah, exactly. So this is something interesting. It's probably more of a design choice, because what you have to also keep in mind when working with Kive is like that you get the validation out of the box, and of course this is kind of the part where we as a protocol generate fees and stuff. So you would have to ask yourself if you would need some extra validation on the YouTube videos. I personally would argue, in theory, not. I think if you build a good, oh sorry, my Siri just turned on. If you're building a good kind of DApp and stuff, which uses Arweave as a backend, you wouldn't have the problem, because what you would care about is actually storing the videos decentralized, and that's kind of it. I think where kind of Kive's power comes in is when you work with external data, which is stored somewhere, and you want to make sure that you migrate it over to Arweave efficiently, because then you need the extra validation. It's like, okay, did someone maybe modify this backup or something, right? Because then you have a problem, because if you modify a backup and someone loads in a faulty backup, everything is kind of really goes downhill from there. And then especially when you work with data streams, it's also interesting. So I mean, with the individual YouTube videos, might be like, wouldn't really see that Kive is a big, it's big.
Well, then
how would I say? Sorry.
how about this then? If I was migrating like a 500 film Hollywood studio catalog, then it would make sense,
Exactly.
right? Like if I was taking MGM's 4,000 library onto Arweave, I would come to you guys and we'd say, okay, you basically validate that I have accurately gotten the catalog over.
Exactly.
Okay,
That
cool.
would be a perfect example for that.
Let's
It's
see if
mostly kind of.
let's try and do that.
Yeah, let's go for it. Yeah, no. So yeah, it's exactly, it comes in then handy when you work with a stream of data, because that's where most likely things go wrong. Of course, especially the more you go into like the financial aspect of things, right? The less you want to go wrong. There's like actually no place for errors on that, and this is kind of where kind of really Kive plays out the strength. Because I mean, like you can use Kive for like to upload your family pictures, right? I just wouldn't recommend it, because you're paying basically the extra costs of the validation and things like that. But actually don't need it. I mean, if you upload your family pictures, you're fine with them.
Of course, yeah.
Being on Arweave.
What's the
so,
what? So what would the price bump be? What's the cost?
So this is actually completely configurable per storage pool. So it's most likely going to be like some very small additional fee on top of the Arweave storage. This is how our tokenomics work. But we can't say actually anything about it, because this is really something one of the storage pool, or like the governance of the pool comes up with, because there are multiple ways on how you can use the pricing. I mean, the more pricing you have, the higher of a pricing you have, right? The more miners, of course, are going to be attracted to your pool. They're going to be operate there. This, of course, leads to more security in that pool. So you can argue that, well, if you increase the pricing, so if it's more costly to store some data, it's also more secure, right? Because you have more nodes probably, which generate higher rewards. You have more delegation, more total value locked, and so on in there, right? And then also, let's see, if you have, for example, two pools and one is not looking too good because, oh, the stream is not really working out as such, now, or someone's really not interested in just accessing the data, right? And of course, you can also lower the pricing to incentivize other people to kind of join that pool, right? Do some funding and things on that. Oh, did he just drop out or?
Sorry, no, I just
Oh, no, there you
someone just bumped up next to me in GatherTown. They pulled me into a bubble, so I just popped out.
Okay, no worries, it's fine. Did you miss anything I said?
I think I understand that the price varies depending on your requirements for validation and speed and incentivizing.
Exactly, and probably one of the best examples there is also computation, right? Because it could be that maybe you have a huge data set and you want to do computation and you want to make sure that the result you get is valid, right? So it could be that you're just storing a few bytes, which is insanely cheap to store, right? But actually the computation the nodes would need to do is
It's very
so high that
expensive.
exactly. And then what you can do is you can artificially increase the pricing in it, so miners are correctly incentivized to do the operations needed on that pool.
Cool. Thank you.
Welcome. Just reading through some more questions. Oh yeah, perfect, John. Just saw you put in glass XYZ, right?
You know, I don't want to monopolize the talk here, but yeah, people keep telling me glass, and I keep trying to go explore glass, but people over there don't seem too responsive, and it might just be to me. Are they sort of building out under the cover of darkness, or they're super busy, or what's going on over there? Does anybody know?
Yeah, so I'm regularly in contact with Sam, for the founder there. Happy to make an intro. I'm just gonna guess that they're just super busy, probably.
So I've got a finished feature film. We put $1 million into it. I'm trying to find a good Web3 way to release it, and people keep telling me glass, and I send them an email and say, hey, I'd love to talk to you, but no response. So if you could make an intro, I'd really appreciate it. If there's no interest, no problem, and if there is, great. Let's go to town.
Yeah, happy to. Just like feel free to just like drop your email in the chat or just privately message me, and then I can make the intro there.
I'll put my email in the chat. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Amazing. And then just so Pierre's question. Can I configure Kive to validate metadata on other R blocks? Each custom pool, or just I think it's two separate questions, right? Oh, Peter, you're also here. Perfect.
Hey, Peter. Nice to see you again.
Hi, you two guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah, just fine.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'll just restate my question, and they are two separate questions. That's right. So like, and this is probably a very basic one, so excuse me if this has already been covered, but like, yeah, you just clarified that the value out of Kive over and above Arweave is that if you want to validate, like, so yes, I can get decentralized storage from Arweave, so I can put videos on there. I don't have to go through Kive if I don't have to actually have to validate something, if there isn't like disputed information, or if I want to get a verification function into it. If I do want verification validation, then Kive is this value add layer on top. And so I think I know the answer already, but I want to clarify is like, I love the idea that I can create a custom pool. I can set my own policies for it. But then can I build my own business logic for the type of data that I'm verifying? Like what's the relationship between, is it validating R blocks and saying, yes, we're all seeing the same R blocks, or can it be more sophisticated than that, where I can go, okay, here's a metadata schema. We're all seeing the same values for the same metadata schema, like something to that effect. Is that a use case?
Exactly. So the way we design it is Kive to be as generic as possible. So the only thing Kive as a protocol requires from you as a developer is an upload function and a validate function. And the validate function just needs to return true or false. And the Arweave ID it's going to validate. And you can put up any logic in there. Like you can do as crazy, as complex as you would want it. Same on the upload side of things. It's like we just, for now, just choose kind of the most naive use case where we say, well, does A equal B? Right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of it. But you can build in any logic there. It's like as long as this one function at the end returns true or false with the Arweave ID it wants to validate, that's.
And then are you guys handling like distributed consensus on that validation? Like to say, like, let's say I've got 5 nodes and we're all running the same business logic to validate whether something is true or false based on whatever I programmed in. And then 4 nodes say, yes, it's true, and 1 says false. Like, is that what you're adding? Like when I think of validation, that's what I think of, right? Like otherwise I have to code that myself.
100%. This is exactly basically what you get from Kive, where you as a developer don't need to worry about, right? This is all handled from the Kive libraries and from the Kive protocol on the smart contract level. So the way the Kive flow works, right, is that you have your uploader, which is programmed with some upload logic, right? It takes data from A and then stores it on Arweave, and then he submits this Arweave ID in the smart contract saying, hey, validators, I uploaded this piece of data. Could you please run your validation function against it and tell me if I did a good job on uploading it, if it's true or false, right? And then what happens is the nodes, the other validator nodes, they would pull down the Arweave transaction, run the validation logic against it, and then get to the result true or false, right? And then submit the transaction to the smart contract saying, hey, my result was true, my result was false, right? And then if you get 4 for true and 1 for false, the transaction is counted valid on the smart contract level. And the smart contract emits an event saying, hey, this transaction has been voted valid on, or this transaction has been voted invalid on, or if not enough people voted, if you haven't met a quorum, for example, it says, well, this transaction has been dropped. We don't know the result if it was true or false.
That's amazing. And then and then what about like incentivizing the nodes? Like I know I can set my own policy and set like what the amounts and tokenomics around that, for example, but like the actual logic of distributing rewards and awarding a minter, like a block minter, like you know, we've got all, you know, it's not proof of work. Well, it is, I guess. You're actually running the logic, right? But it's, I don't want to be doing a delegated proof of stake. I prefer something like a verifiable random lottery to say, okay, thank you. Here's my 5 nodes. Everybody agreed. You win this round. You get to nominate the block, and so you get the block award here, right? Because I want to get to the point where I love the idea that you guys are talking about really needing really minimum computing requirements. So can you explain a little bit more about how you would like you do the validation? Yes, we all agreed. Is there logic built in for nominating a leader that gets to mint a block or whatever if the metaphor is?
Yeah, exactly. So the way that it works in the upgrades, hopefully being rolled out this week, the way that it works is when you first start the pool, of course, you have your Genesis block, you can call it, or proposal, which is the first piece of data archived. And anybody can archive that, right? Because it's the Genesis. But then after that, like you said, the way that it works is once that block has been validated, sorry, that proposal has been validated, then only the people that voted in the majority, which incentivize voting correctly, can then have a chance, a random chance of being picked to then upload the next proposal. So that's how it works. So exactly like you mentioned it.
And so when you say random chance, have you got like a verifiable random number generator? Like what's the trustworthy method for that? Like is there, can you explain that a little bit further?
Yeah, exactly. So basically, I mean, of course, since it's a smart contract, it has to be deterministic. So it's just a pseudo random chance based on the block height and the block hash. We don't do the block timestamp because in Ethereum that can be tampered with a little bit with the miners, but we've tried to make it as fair as possible.
Okay, so and that's great. And then so explain the Ethereum dependency. Then you're saying this has to run as an Ethereum smart contract.
Yeah, so for now, Kive is based, like all the Kive validation logic and all that stuff with the nodes is based as an EVM smart contract right now.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, and this is the part I missed maybe at the top of the hour. So yeah, so it's running Solidity code in an EVM, but you're not reliant on, you don't have to, you don't have a bridge to Ethereum and have to pay gas fees or use Polygon.
No.
Okay, yeah, I just want to
no.
I was like, wait a second, hold on. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing is that we're like an EVM contract right now, and then that gives us like full control over like where we can deploy. Of course, for now we're deployed on the Moonbeam testnet just because the testnet and Moonbeam is super cheap. We could in theory deploy on Ethereum mainnet, but of course, like you said, gas fees would just be through the roof, and we would not want to do that.
Yeah, very cool. And so, because you know what, this is quite powerful because I've been doing a lot of homework on like building my own custom validator network, and I've been looking at Hyperledger and Cosmos and like Avalanche. But the fact that you're able to, you're ready, and I need a storage solution. Like most Web3 apps need a storage solution. They don't really think through the whole stack properly. So, and the fact that you're letting me create custom policy, and again, do it in like EVM compatible code, like that's a pretty powerful combination you guys are putting together here. That's pretty cool. And so my last question then, and I'll stop hogging the questions, is like the business model for you guys. Like, again, I can set my own policy on like what the charge is for running a validator, or who, like for coming through the validator pool. If you want to be a user of the validator pool, how much rewards go to the validators. And then presumably you guys would still take a small percentage of something, right? Like so that you can fund your network. Like how is Kive sustainable?
Yeah, so actually Kive as a protocol itself is sustainable because all of the pools use the same token, right? We as a team, basically, we don't take any fee on anything. It's literally just like its own protocol, its own network, which basically is funded. But the way the funding in Kive works is basically that, let's say, right, you would be a data indexer, right, which would love to have access to the stream of data which we are storing, right, or which the storage pool is storing. Let's take Solana data as another example, right? And then, of course, you start building your business model on top of that. And then what happens is when the storage pool runs out of funding, it pauses. So there's nothing happening, no new data is uploaded, nothing. So of course, then you're highly incentivized to acquire some Kive tokens and put them in to the pool as a funding again. So the pool starts up again and starts continuing to archive the data. And then the more people basically have the urge to get access to the same data, the more people would fund the pool, and effectively they all share the costs, right? And I think this is kind of what we really see happening for, like I said, because I mean the blockchain data which we are storing is open, is public, anyone can access it. It's really not a problem, right? But you get it from this one place, you get it from in a verified manner. You know that your data is correct. Don't need to worry about that. So this is the way how our incentive model work on that end.
Okay, interesting. So you're like, so you have like a treasury of Kive that's managed by, I guess, eventually a DAO, or you guys right now. And so the model is that people will like, and this makes sense. I forgot about this important piece. Like even though I can create my own custom pool, we're all going to use the Kive token, which I like too, by the way. I don't like this like exponential growth of like sub tokens. I think it gets out of hand. So that is a nice piece to keep it all together. But that I forgot about that. It's kind of like your glue, right? For all these other pools, is we're all going to use the Kive token. And so yeah, you're not getting a cut on transactions, but you're counting on the fact that people are going to want more Kive tokens to give liquidity to their pools, and then but they're going to have to purchase it from the treasury, or and then the DAO or the treasury has a percentage that goes back to a core development team to maintain the protocol. Am I getting this right? I'm just kind of trying to follow along here.
Yes, this is kind of exactly how it works. So you have so actually the pool funding does not go into like any managed DAO. It goes actually into the smart contract of this pool. So it's completely kind of managed autonomous, and then it's going to be paid out for every proposal which has been proven valid or invalid, right? But where some result has been found, and then the people there get paid out. And then you have to just a trickle down effect really from like the pool funding, it trickles down to the miners. And then, of course, the funding goes empty, and then people are incentivized to purchase Kive tokens, most likely then from the miners, for example, right? Purchases back from them and then feed it back into the pool. And then this is kind of the way the flow works. And then, of course, there's also some like global Kive treasury, which basically sits on top of everything, which is managed by governance, which is then able to like do like either step in something when, for example, some nodes behave maliciously, things like that, right? Of course, then you can create a vote to manually step in, punish them, and things like that. But also, for example, to fund some pools which are like maybe up for the goods, right? Where there's no immediate funder coming in, so there are multiple mechanics in place to kind of be able to maintain a pool over a longer period of time, right? And then, of course, you can also use that for some grant work, some bounty work, right? Maintaining the protocol, things like that.
This is incredible, guys. Like, so you don't have all of these details, as far as I can tell, in your documentation yet, right? Like, is that, am I right about that? Like everything that you just described to me, like the documentation I'm reading is fairly like high level concept still, right? Are you guys going to update that soon?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think our documentation is the biggest downside we have right now. It's just we're so super busy building that like documentation is something we unfortunately keep a bit out of place. But this is something we're gonna update. I think it might be in the light paper somewhere. I'm not 100% sure. It's definitely, so light paper is not up to date to kind of all the latest things. I think the stuff with like the basic token flow and things might be in there. But you're absolutely right. It's like big thing for us to work on documentation coming up and kind of be able to especially educate, right, our community more about the way Kive works.
Yeah, and also just for me, like as a project builder, I'm putting together my technical architecture right now. And like I said, I've been looking at a lot of options, and I'm liking everything I hear about you guys. So I definitely want to join testnet and start prototyping. But then for me, I need to convince other people that what I'm doing is sound. It's like, well, why didn't you build this on Cosmos? I'm like, well, I chose Kive instead because of these and these reasons, right? Like it'd be great to be able to point to these kinds of answers and get clarity on it for our collaborators as well. So that would be nice to have at some point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We can for sure work. So for the new update, we have worked on a new documentation, but it's mostly focused around the technical aspects of things. But I can for sure do some more write-ups on the less technical and more on the tokenomic aspect, because as I said, right, it's probably very important for business decisions being made that we also kind of put that down and document that.
I think to your advantage too, right? Because like I said, what I'm seeing is like, as somebody who's been looking for a validator network solution, you guys are offering something unique that isn't in the market yet. And like, so for other people doing the same thing, evaluating, you know, choosing between Cosmos or Polkadot or Avalanche, like that's the kind of category I would put you in right now. Like where I can build my own custom validator network chain. You guys are like, your economic model is way more generous. There's a huge buy-in cost and minimal technical computing requirements for validator nodes on those networks. To even though Cosmos is the only one that doesn't have a minimum, but it has a practical minimum to be, if you want to connect to the base chain, and all of those are like $100,000 US buy-ins at minimum, right, to get a validator node going. So that's hugely, like, that's a big blocker for anybody that wants to build a truly decentralized network where it's like, hey, let's ship out Raspberry Pis or whatever else and get like 5,000 people to hook it up to their Ethernet port at home, and boom, you're part of a validator network. Like this is the kind of opportunity I'm seeing with you guys. Like, so it's very exciting. So I just want to say kudos, congratulations. I can't wait to work on it some more. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy to. Yeah, if you guys have any any questions, especially kind of how you can build your own integration, your own pool, just reach out to us, to the dev team. We're happy to take care of that and help you out. Because as we said, right, it's especially like a very not well documented part of things, but it's actually super easy. And so so we can help you guys to come up with a solution around that and build something. So I'm gonna just check the chat if there are any more questions coming in. Doesn't look like there's anything crazy going on here. Just one more people dropping in. Is the gather full? No, right? There's no space. No, there's no space. It's fine. Awesome. Just wait for a few seconds. Maybe something Discord, something exciting happening here. No, it's just a packed room. Is there anything else exciting we've got about to talk, or did we cover most of it?
Yeah, I think we covered everything. I mean, yeah, the main bit is the protocol upgrade. Got some exciting stuff in that, but I think we covered that.
By the way, where does the name come from, Kive?
Yeah, so right. So no, so basically it really just comes from the word archive. There's nothing to it really. So we were just kind of coming up with names. There was like loads of names, I think. So we originally started archiving Polkadot, so we were going to be called some crazy names out there. And then as we started generalizing, we were just like, hey, listen, we're archiving all these chains. Archive, Kive. Fancy spelling, Kive. Here we are. There's like nothing to it. It's not an acronym, nothing like that. It's just, yeah.
And what where do you buy Kive? Is Kive token for sale?
No, not yet. So while we're still in testnet, no token is live. You can get like 1,000 Kive from our faucets, and that's enough to kind of, you know, get you started in the network, whether or not you want to fund a pool, delegate those tokens, or run a node as well. But yeah, for now, while we're in testnet, you can't buy it anywhere.
Well, thank you.
I've got to say, by the way, like, so I'm an archivist. I've been making archive software for like 15 years. And so I've got a pretty popular open source platform called Archivematica, right? And I was like, we stretched our brains for like weeks coming up with a good archive. It's not easy to make a good name from archive or archives. So we got Archivematica. And then by committee, we ended up with another platform called Access to Memory, and that became Atom. And like, there's a million Atom products out there. And so, and I'm launching this new one. This is what I'm interested in Kive for, is like building a fully Web3 archiving platform, like using the standards and practices from the archival world. And so I finally got to, it's called Arkly, ARKLY. I was pretty proud of that one. But then when I found you guys and I saw Kive, I'm like, God damn it, I've been trying this for 15 years. I heard your last like meetup or a breakout, and you guys talked about how you're just like one late at night, suddenly you got Kive. I'm like, fuck, that's brilliant. Like, why didn't I all these years, I never came up with Kive. These guys that's an amazing name.
Peter,
the thing is, like,
can I just interrupt for 1 second? Peter, while we're here, I'm working with a group called the Asian Legacy Library, and they've been rescuing books written on palm leaves, basically from Tibet and India for the last 25 or 30 years. and they've created a database that's searchable. I've been trying to get them onto Web3. Can you and I possibly meet up and talk about that? It sounds like you would have some great insight into that.
Yeah, my Web3 solution is still not, it's not there. Like I'm working on it. That's going to be the next 12 months of R&D. And it sounds like it's going to be built on Kive for when I need data that needs validation. And Arweave for the permanent storage. But for that kind of organization, I suggest you go to my company called Artifactual Systems. Just artifactual.com. That's another name I came up with, Artifactual. artefactual.com. And they're the service provider for this platform called Access to Memory, Atom, and that's also at accesstomemory.org. And that's a free open source, like it's like a WordPress for archival cataloging and getting collections online and getting them cataloged. So that's the kind of thing you want. Web3 is not ready for this quite yet. So that's
okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
I don't want to take away from the Kive guys. I just wanted to connect you.
I just want to give them a high five for the Kive name. I thought that was amazing. So yeah, you guys stumbled into it. Like, you know, it sounds like you kind of stumbled across it, but like it's a brilliant stroke.
Yeah, the thing is, I think every founder and product owner can rely on it. Like naming this stuff is like it's the hardest thing, you know. It's like,
it is.
and then Facila is right in the chat. It's Kive with uppercase. It's a big fight, and on any press release we do, they tend to spell Kive just with a capital K.
Right.
It's of course Kive all the way through. I
had that with Access to Memory. It was like, you know, it's like access and then to and then M. So we made it like capital A, lowercase T-O, capital M. And same thing, like for years, it's like, you know, now it's kind of like, it's pretty like, it's the most predominant piece of software in the archives world. So everybody knows it now. But for the first few years, it was like spelled every way you can imagine, right? So and then people like, and then we got to issue like people like, is it called Atom or A2M? So we had like half our users calling it A2M and the other half calling it Atom, and then another. So anyway, yeah, you're right. It's tricky. So it's but it looks so much cooler with the capitals, obviously. Like it's just gotta, and throwing that Y in there is like, again, like I said, some people are just, you know, you guys are obviously have a good creative mind. So nice work.
Thank you. You know, so the thing is like, yeah, we hear like from Kive to KYVE to KYVE, but actually John, I think we need to be completely honest with that. The only reason why we choose Kive over some other options was because all the other domains were taken, and actually, the Kive domain was the only one that was not taken yet. That's where we ended up.
That, and it was like dirt cheap. Like so, some of the other names that we were trying out, like the domains were there, but it was like 10K for a domain, and we're like, maybe not this early.
I mean, the one nice thing now about is that at least there's so many domain name options out there, right? KYZ.io, like .network, .link, like, and they're cheap now, which is nice. But yeah, I ran the same thing with trying some of these domain names too. Like they just seems like as soon as you go to 4 characters, they just automatically 10 grand and up, right? It doesn't matter even what the 4 characters make any sense, right? It's kind of sad.
Exactly.
I had another, like I'm doing an Oracle project. So this is all for an Oracle project. And so I want to like validate data coming in off chain and have a validating network validate the validity and the authenticity of the data before it goes to an Oracle. And in the process, I'm making an open Oracle protocol for it. So somebody's been like domain squatting on openoracle.org. And so I was like, I want openoracle.org because it belongs there. So I was like, and this guy wanted $5,000 for it. I'm like, hey, this is just an open source project with no funding. Like, I'll give you $500, right? And that's all I can afford out of my own pocket. And then he's like, no, $4,500. I'm like, screw you. Like, openoracle.link cost me $10, right? So I'll just take that. Thank you. Like, move on.
Dude, one of my biggest regrets right now is the fact that we saw Kive.eth. So .eth is ENS domains. I'm sure you've heard of them on Ethereum mainnet. And gas prices were high, right? It was like $100, $200, right, to buy Kive.eth, right? But it was there, and we were like, should we do it? Because like just gas prices, right? Always the issue. And then literally we come back a month later when we actually want Kive.eth and like gas prices are low, and then it's taken, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Maybe we can like snipe it from the person. We go to OpenSea, and sure enough, it's listed for like 20K, and I'm like, darn it.
And is that because they heard of your project? You think they were just
exactly? Oh, no, 100%. Like I checked out the address, and they're literally squatting on like 25 other ENS domains.
Wow, so lame,
I'm like, nice.
It's like the scum of the earth. Like I hate squatters. It's like, if you're gonna do something or you got an idea, great, you know. But like if that your only business model is like standing in the way of somebody creative, like, you know, that's just lame. Like, get a life.
It's fair. It's fair. Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, this is kind of the first big hurdles we had with with Kive kind of coming up with that. But no, actually, so that's kind of the story. But yeah, so PokerWeave was in, which actually I think we found. So we're like a year and 8 days old or something. So Kive itself, right? I think for the university we found like the first deployments and stuff on Argo. By the way, if anyone is looking into hosting his homepage, decentralized Argos, how do you call it? Spheron?
Spheron, I think. Yeah, Spheron. Yeah.
Spheron. Very cool service.
Yeah,
And,
but yeah, so was our anniversary on February 1st, exactly 1 year. And yeah, we pulled up like the old deployments of the site and stuff like that. And it was just like memory lane.
yeah, so this is kind of really cool. And also see Jesse just said, hey guys, hope you enjoying the workshop. We're going to have a presentation in 5 minutes at the stage. All right. We can
Very cool.
I'm gonna go check that out. Thanks, guys, for answering your questions.
All right, see you, Peter. It was
Excellent.
great chatting.
Yeah.
see you.